Years ago, when Laura and I first started out with House of David, we were given some very well-intentioned, well-meaning advice that turned out to be the opposite of what Yah's heart really was and still is. Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 3 of Torah portion Mikketz. As we described yesterday, Joseph is suddenly brought out of the prison house, the dungeon of Pharaoh, and brought into his court, where he stands with wise and discerning words filled with the Ruach Elohim. That is, he's filled with the Spirit of the Most High Yah, and he demonstrates that wisdom and his plan not only to save the nation of Egypt or Mitzrayim, but actually the world. The advice that Laura and I received 18 plus years ago was, as we started House of David, stay under the radar, quote unquote. Stay under the radar. Don't put a name on your building. Don't advertise. Go by word of mouth, because they, whoever they are, they will be out to get you. In those days, there were conspiracy theories by the mountainfuls of how that the government of that time was coming after us, would overwhelm us, would shut us down. Internment camps would be our new home. They would not tolerate such ideology as Hebraic roots, etc. We considered ourselves a great danger to the status quo. Well, maybe in some respects that could have been true in those days, but to stay under the radar meant then that no one knew who we were. We ended up being branded as some form of a cult. We lost people before they ever got through the door because they didn't trust us. They didn't know us, and we refused to even kind of reveal ourselves. All of that backfired, and what could have been a burgeoning, growing local congregation focusing on the truth of the entire word as opposed to only half of it ended up being small, stunted in its growth, and limited in its outreach. Again, the advice was well-intentioned, it was well-meaning for the day, but it was ill-advised. Unfortunately, I followed that advice for a long number of years. It comes down to the basic principle of, should you and I, as believers in Messiah, especially those who are given to the entire scriptures to follow after the commands in the Torah of Yah, should we involve ourselves in the affairs of the nation that we are in exile? Should we even get involved in the political fray? Would it not be better for you and I to step back and let the opposing sides have at it, say nothing, and just pray for a release to get home to Israel and don't worry about it? If Joseph had done that, not only Mitzrayim, but the world could have starved. Now, let's consider this fact. The famine that was decreed was not something that took Yah by surprise. I do not believe that it was Hasatan's plan, but rather Yah's plan. It was a purposed plan of famine to restructure the earth, in particular a Hebrew family living in Eretz Israel, at that time still called the land of Canaan, that they needed to go into Mitzrayim for hundreds of years in order to fulfill a prophecy that was given to Abraham. It was necessary that Yah intentionally, on purpose, send this family into a constricting place of paganism, gross idolatry, enormous demonology, being acted out on a regular basis, knowing that they would ultimately be placed in servitude, gross slavery, and that many of them would lose their entire identity. So this was not only a building process, but a weeding process. so that the hearts of this family could be revealed and that Yah would redeem those who were desirous to be redeemed. Daniel involved himself in the affairs of Babylon. Babylon likewise was an idolatrous, sensuous, demonically controlled in many ways nation. He not only involved himself in the affairs, but Yah intentionally promoted him, like Joseph, to among the top tier of governmental leaders. Yeshua was brought, in many minds, unnecessarily before Pilate. For Yeshua said to Pilate, "If Yah did not give you, my Father did not give you any authority, you would have none over me. My kingdom," he said, "is not of this world, or else my followers would be fighting for me." So let's make it plain. We are not fighting for an earthly kingdom. We are fighting for and involving ourselves in the affairs of host exiled nations because of the reality of heaven's kingdom, the reign and the authority of Yeshua over the entire earth. Those who went into exile in Babylon were told, settle down, get married, build houses, raise your families, and pray for the well-being of this country. Now, it was not to be a permanent situation. Some made it permanent. But they were told to pray for the benefit of the nation. If you and I sit back and say nothing concerning the affairs that are going on in our nation here in America, for those watching in other countries, if you sit back and say nothing, then don't be shocked when unrighteousness prevails and causes you hardship. When it comes to those that are sick, even to those that are approaching death, my effort has always been, as long as there is breath in the body, I pray for life. If Yah takes beyond my prayers, takes the life, then that's his choice. But if there is life in the body, unless Yah tells me to pray otherwise, I ask for life. I ask for healing. Now, I don't want to see someone go on living continually in pain or in suffering. But the understanding is, Father, I pray for life, for the ability to live and to move and to go and to be, to do. I'm asking for resurrection power to come into this person and deliver them from their suffering. Likewise, as long as there are righteous men and women in this nation, Zedekim, those who walk in a higher level of righteousness and exert righteous influence, as long as there are these people in this nation, we should pray and intercede for the benefit of this nation. Abraham stood in the face of Yah and interceded for the wicked cities of the plain. Many thought beyond redemption. But he prayed concerning the fact that if there are Zedekim in these cities, will you spare the cities from judgment? And Yah said yes. I believe that there are millions of righteous people the world over, and perhaps millions here in this nation. Now, they may be weak in their righteousness. They may be elevated in their righteousness. But for especially those who walk at a high level, that is, they walk righteously, they conduct their affairs righteously, and they seek the face of the Father to be righteous within completely, exerting righteous influence. If we will cry out, Yah will hear us. Yes, the safe way is to pray, Father, your will be done, whatever that might be. But as long as there's life in this body and life in this nation, I will cry out for its deliverance, and I invite you to join me. Let's be a Joseph and offer a plan of a way out. Let us walk in wisdom and in discernment in the spirit of Yah. And let us interceding on behalf of this country. Until tomorrow, shalom.